I'm also mad because I kicked him in the gut and he got caught in the T-shirt. And Impact didn't know how to edit at the time, so I'm like stuck in his shirt. I'm like, oh my God, I'm wrestling Sting and this I suck. Look at this. This is terrible.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's shoot from the hip. Let's talk about Sting. I have no idea if he was a hole digger, but you know he's the icon, is what they call him. So he's actually my all-time favorite wrestler. I'm a huge Sting fan. I'm not a mark of anybody except for Sting, perhaps. I'm a big Sting fan. Sting was one of the first people I noticed as a kid in the 80s watching the National Wrestling Alliance, and it was just something infectious about Sting that as a kid I just drew to. You know, he just like snatched me, you know, as far as interest is concerned. And so been a big fan ever since. My all-time favorite. Both these people on the screen next to me have worked with Sting. EC3 from a wrestling standpoint, Vince Russo from a writing production standpoint. I'll start with Vince. You work with Sting in late WCW and TNA. How was it working with Steve?
Well, you know, bro, it's funny. I didn't have too much of a relationship with him at WCW because I was just trying to stay alive. I mean, to be honest with you, I had a very, very close relationship with him at TNA. He's a great human being, bro. He's a great, great human being, but it's a little weird, bro, because he's a great human being. He's a great man. He's a great Christian, but I don't think he's a lot of things I don't think you'd expect him to be or not to be. Like, number one, bro, is he's not the locker room leader type. I mean, he's really not. He could be in a heartbeat, but I just don't think he wants to assume that role. He's the kind of guy, bro, where, you know, like you really talk about blue collar worker. He comes to work. He wants to know what he's going to do. He wants to make it the best possible way. Never had an ego with, wanting to do things. I mean, he was never that guy. Really blue collar, showing up for work. What do you want me to do? He would really thoroughly go over it. He would add to it. He would take away. Then he would go out there and give you the best performance he could. Bro, listen, man, maybe I am naive and maybe EC3 will tell you something differently, but bro, not a political bone in his body. Not when I worked with him anyway. You know, maybe earlier on in WCW when it was dog eat dog. By the time he got to TNA, zero politics, zero ego, just a man that was just very prideful in being the best that he could be. That was this thing that I knew, bro.
Respect. EC3. Digger, what you got, my man?
May I hereby declare that I am one of the few human beings on this earth, and definitely one of the only three in this chat who has beaten Sting. I beat Sting. Yep, I beat Sting. I beat Sting twice.
I was mad at that, by the way. But you know,
good, that was the point.
That's the point of getting heat.
Yeah. I would attest to everything Vince said about his work ethic, his ability as a man, what he believes, who he is, a hard worker, things of that nature. And like, two, in the sense, I wouldn't see him as like the locker room leader type, despite the fact he's one of the most well-respected wrestlers of all time. So he never like assumed dominance or power. He always just seemed like pleased to be there. He just seemed to be in good moods and, happy. And, I'm catching him at the tail end. So I think too, that's when he went through like being far more Christian than he was. So,
right.
I don't know the 80s and 90s version of Sting. I do know them from a fan standpoint. Loved Surfer Sting, Crow Sting. I thought was cool, but I also didn't want to give away the fact I watched WCW when I was strictly a WWF guy. But
why do you want to give that fact away?
Because I felt like there was a war going on, and I'm like, well, I like WWF a little bit better, probably because Vince Russo's writing and he's a genius.
Yes,
but
yes.
at the same time, you know, like my fandom segueing from just a simple casual to like I really want to do this, and then that's when I start looking at work rate and you know things of that nature and like good matches over character. But Sting just had an infatuating character, especially with the Crow. But what turned me off from WCW is I waited a year, maybe it was 15 months, to see Sting and Hogan have the epic confrontation, and all, like, man, all I wanted was like a significant, dignified, clean finish. Yep. And this is what like really parlayed me into disliking just nonsensical wrestling BS. But like, just Sting winning cleanly would have like blown my like super satisfied. Like that's what I want to happen. That's what I know should happen. But if you go all the way, and I'll probably talk about this on other things, especially from a creative standpoint, even if it's the obvious thing, it's okay because it's the obvious thing people want and to feel joy and gratification. So that kind of desensitized me and started me on the bitter road I am towards wrestling right there at Starrcade. But yeah, I couldn't be happier to having the opportunity to have worked with him. I'm really mad he wrestled with a t-shirt on though, because I love Sting in the singlet. So I'm also mad because I kicked him in the gut and he got caught in the t-shirt. And Impact didn't know how to edit at the time, so I'm like stuck in his shirt. I'm like, oh my God, I'm wrestling Sting and this I suck. Look at this. This is terrible.
I gotta tell you, Chris, one of my favorite stories is because I dealt with like a guy like Goldberg, who was the absolute opposite. Goldberg wanted to do with what Goldberg did and never wanted to move off it. Chris, you got to understand, as a writer going into WCW, I'm inheriting a guy that won 150 matches in a row, whatever. Where do you go from there? Like, you can't reach any greater heights than the guy had a win streak of 150. That's where the ideal of the heel came. All right, bro, like let's go in this other direction. He did not want to do it, and it was going to be god awful.
And you can see that on air too. I gotta tell
you a Sting story, bro. This is the kind of guy Sting is, because Sting did not have to do this, bro. His legacy was cemented 20 years ago. But you know, we were doing stuff at TNA, and then we kind of got into a situation where he was starting to go a little crazy, a little cuckoo. We transitioned that into Joker Sting, bro. I got to tell you, this blew me away about Sting, and this tells you everything about the man. So, bro, of course, I'm very hesitant because, like EC3 said, this is Surfer Sting. This is Crow Sting. He doesn't need to do anything, but this could probably be pretty freaking entertaining if he embraced it. So, bro, slowly but surely, like, he didn't care about the way he put his makeup anymore, and he was morphing into it. Bro, I'll never forget, he showed up at One TV in a red suit that he went out and purchased. That's a pro, bro. Nice. That is a pro that's not afraid to take chances, push the boundaries, isn't afraid to fail, doesn't have a safe zone that he's got. When he showed up with that red suit, I had so much freaking respect for him, bro. It was unbelievable to me.
Love it. Yeah. What do you think before we go into my next question I have for you? I did a little research about this a while ago, actually, and people say that Sting lost cleanly to Hulk Hogan at Starrcade 97, right? I beg to differ. What's that?
Go ahead.
I beg to differ. This is why, because I did a still shot watching it. And I've interviewed, Nick Patrick is a friend of mine. I've interviewed him a bunch, and he told me actually what happened backstage. If you see that, Nick Patrick is not hitting 3 yet, and Hogan has the tights of Sting.
Unbelievable.
So he did not win cleanly. Therefore, Bret Hart had to come out and reverse and restart the match. So
sucks. That sucks so bad. And I don't know if Hogan had the tights or if he had the grundle there. That was a close call.
Politics at its finest, man.
Yeah, like I'm being built up, and I'm new and unproven. I'm being built up, and the company has a little faith in me, but I have to prove myself to the vets. And, a guy like Sting's one of them. I'm like, they book a match, and it's me and Sting, singles. Like, I'm like, holy hell. And I remember because we had time in between TVs. So, like, I'm training my ass off. Like, dude, I'm working Sting. I'm going to have the best bumping feet ever. Like, I'm putting all effort into, like, this is a huge moment. And the show started with one of those, typical in-ring interviews. Hope you didn't write it. But my dear, sweet Aunt D, is cutting the promo, and it was, like, scheduled for 8 minutes. And I'm out there, and I'm like, this feels like 20 minutes. And I'm still out there. I'm like, this feels like 22 minutes. And we were out there forever. And like we get back and they're like, yeah, it was 12 minutes over. And I'm like, because I'm the main event against Sting. Where's all that time going to get cut from? The time we had. Granted, we don't need 15 or 20 minutes at that stage in our feud. But at the same time, I think we had a good solid 12 to 14 that got cut to like 6 and just rushed and convoluted. And I do remember Sting too, coming into work with like a guy like Bully Ray. Sir, what do you want to do? And he's like, I have this vision, this, and this, and this. Cool. Kurt, what do you want to do? This is what I'm thinking. Sting, sir, it's a pleasure to work with you, man. What do you want to do tonight? He's like, I don't know, you call it. I'm like, how about, I chop you a few times and you no-sell and scream in my face. He's like, yeah, that's cool. I like that. I'm like, oh, all right, cool. What else do you do? How about you, Ric Flair, toss me off the top rope? Yeah, okay, I like that. How about I suplex you and you kind of like no-sell and get up and give me a suplex? So I'm just running off Sting spots that I know he does. And he's like, yeah, I like that. All right, cool. Great.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm glad I studied.
Nice.